Marty, how long have you been involved with the PASS program?
This is the second time I've been a mentor. So that total of 4 years as a mentor. I did one group in 2000, and now I'm doing a second group this year.
Okay, and what are some of the national parks that you've worked on so far?
Oh, well, I used to work with HPTC for about 8 years on a Mason crew. So we traveled all over, all up and down the East Coast, Florida, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and then we did some work in St. Louis, even all the way as far as Mount Rainier. So I've traveled quite a few, seen quite a few historic parks. Yeah.
Okay. And what's your specialty?
Well, I am an exhibit specialist, a historic preservation specialist, so I do both carpentry and masonry. And I didn't have very much masonry experience when I got to HPTC. It was all a carpentry background, and then they put me with a mason crew, so I learned a lot from those guys. And so I do both actually now.
Okay. All right. Well, describe what's going on with the structure behind us. Is this restrooms?
Yeah. Well, it's an old log structure, and they're redaubing it. It's chink and daub between the logs. And so the people that are sort of giving this demonstration work here for Melrose, I believe, and they're showing the guys, giving them a demonstration of how to re-chink and daub these walls. So it's a mixture of mud and sand and lime, and all local product here.
Describe what a mentor does in the PASS program.
A mentor is someone with experienced in historic preservation work, and you have trainees that are it's relatively new to them. Generally, they are in a park that has historic structures, and don't have the people or the crews to work on them. So we'd like to take these guys and give them exposure to preservation work, and the how-tos and what not to do, and then they can go back to their parks and be qualified to do the work on their buildings, which either when they can't bring people in to do it, then it gives them the experience to do that work, and it's basically preventive maintenance on their building.
What do you think the value is for this program in the long term? What does this program do for our country, I guess, as far as protecting its treasures?
Well, in the long term, of course, budgets are getting cut, and there's less and less guys that do that. So it's a bit of a specialized type of construction, and a lot of us guys are getting up there in the years, and we're getting to retirement time, and I don't see a lot of young guys coming in doing this. So we're trying to recruit younger guys and pass this knowledge on to them, or it's going to be lost, So we like to pass the knowledge on and the skills, and working with these older tools and doing things the old way that is sort of a lost way of doing it. It's not modern construction at all. And if we can get this younger guys, or even these newer park guys to pick up that knowledge and skill, and it'll pass it on, and in the long term, you'll maintain these historic structures in the Park Service, where which we have a lot of them, and we're looked to be the experts, to be the people that are doing it the right way, and so we need to keep that going.
Have you always been passionate about older buildings, or is that something that came later in life?
Well, I always liked the old buildings. Everybody looks at them and thinks they're pretty cool, and but I was a modern construction carpenter in my 20s and building houses, and then I got into the Park Service and continued that, and then I saw there was this specialized field of historic preservation, and then I got real interested in that, and I thought it'd really be neat to work on these old buildings, and then you learn the philosophy of it, of keeping the historic fabric and all that, and so that got me interested. And then once I started doing that, if you don't have a passion for it, you won't continue. You either like it or you don't. And but I did. I thought it was really neat doing that stuff, and so I got a passion for it and continued doing it. And now I'm trying to teach pass that on and teach other guys and get that same passion in them, you know.
Well, what's the biggest difference between a regular construction job where you're building new things and doing work like this?
Well, it depends on the building really too. If it's a log cabin, you know, they're thrown together pretty quick. There's not a lot of detailed craftsmanship there, but if you get on some of the Victorians, I guess modern construction now, you know, I don't think they're being built to last 100 years. I think in 30 years, most of them are going to be falling apart if you don't maintain them. Whereas when some of these finer homes they built here, you know, they really put a lot of pride in their work, and you know, built them to last. And of course, they had a lot nicer material than, you know, old growth lumber and that sort of thing. But I think the difference is the craftsmanship you see when you start working on some of these buildings, you know, and the pride they took in their work. And there's, you know, they made things fit tight. Modern construction, when you're building stud walls, you know, 1/4 inch gaps, no big deal. Whereas here, you know, they made them touch. So that's sort of the big difference I see.
All right. Well, one more question. What types of materials are you working with here? Like, what are the historic materials that you're either replicating or you're finding in other places?
Well, on the African house, we're using a traditional lime mortar with no Portland, and we're using a lime wash, you know, sort of a lime paint. So there's no Portland in that. We've replacing the bricks with in-kind bricks, so we're using the older hand-fired, and they're soft brick. And all the ones we've taken out that were broke or the face had spalled off, we're replacing it with that type of a brick. So we're trying to keep that traditional building materials here. And you know, Portland's not a bad thing. It's just it's not compatible with historic buildings. And this was built early 17 maybe, or 1800, 17 something. There was no Portland in America, right. So to put that in that building just destroys it. So we're trying to stick to the traditional building material that they used.
Okay. And what's the material that you're using here?
This is like I said, a chink and daub, and these people are using a river sand right off this Cane River behind us, and mud, clays from the area, and then a little bit of lime. They're adding lime. They have their own formula for this daubing, and it's basically the river sand, the local clays, and a little bit of lime, and they mixing up a formula. And then they also use a binder, which traditionally was a moss, this Spanish moss, but they're using a modern polyurethane fiber, and that's sort of a marker so that you know what was the repairs. When you see that modern fiber, you know that was a repair and that's not original. If it's just the moss, then that was an original. So that's a good way of designating where the repairs are versus the original material. And that's what they're doing.
Interesting. All right.